So I briefly talked about it in my chapter review of One Piece chapter 1095. There was so much going on that I couldn't really dive into it, so I thought I'd make a whole separate video about Kizaru not being able to move after getting hit by Luffy's attack. And people think this has put the Yonko versus Admiral debate to rest finally. It's been years. I'll be honest with you guys. I'll keep it real with you guys. I started making YouTube videos because of the Yonko versus Admiral's debate. I watched Marineford. I started commenting on YouTube clips of Marineford almost a decade ago. And then, of course, I started making content. So this debate has definitely inspired my channel. But I will say this, before I talk about Kizaru being exposed, we gotta take a deeper look at the two main factions. Yep, that's right, the admirals who were built up pre-time skip from the beginning when it comes to Aokiji versus Luffy and Nico Robin hyping up the three admirals, the highest power in the Marines, to of course Sabaody and Kizaru versus Rayleigh, and how Rayleigh was 100 times stronger than Luffy, and then Kizaru was able to fight Rayleigh to a stalemate. And then that's why even recently Luffy told Kizaru, we are 100 times stronger. And then of course you can even go to the deepest one, which is Akainu versus Whitebeard during the Marineford War arc. There's a one common trait, they're all pre-time skip. And then when it comes to Yonko, they were built up post-time skip with like fights like Big Mom versus Eustace Kid and Law of the Worst Generation in this 2v1 battle in Wano, which was just hype when it comes to Awakening and Big Mom's destructive capability as a Yonko. And then of course we had Luffy versus Kaido, the main fight of Wano. This Luffy and Kaido, the strongest creature alive versus Luffy with the strongest Joy Boy ability we've seen. It was intense. And then even after Wano, you can even go deeper when it comes to Yonko. Shanks finally putting in work, one tapping Eustace Kid. After Eustace Kid just got his W with fighting Big Mom. Granted, he did get helped by Law. He got one tap and his vice captain at the same time. So technically it was a 2v1, even though you can't really count as that because Shanks was only targeting Kid and then Killer came in to lessen the blow, but it just still wasn't enough. And then of course right after that we had Blackbeard versus Law, and Law did a little bit better than Kid, but Law still got destroyed by Blackbeard, just showing you that Oda post time skip, not even post time skip, you could say Wano and the final saga is where he's really showing the Yonko to be legitimized. But let's be honest here, if we're going to talk about Kizaru being exposed, we got to get deeper when it comes to the first Admiral and Yonko official fight, and that's Akainu versus Whitebeard, the Red Dog, this Admiral with the Magma Developer ability versus Whitebeard, the world's strongest man with the Earthquake, Quake Fruit, the Gurgur no Mi. And of course we all know Whitebeard was old, he was sick, he was on his last legs, and of course Akainu isn't how strong he is post time skip, but Akainu is still very powerful. But Oda said it. Oda said Akainu had the strongest offensive developer ability in the One Piece world, and he took off half of Whitebeard's face. Yes, I know Whitebeard did destroy him with multiple array of attacks after he killed Ace, but a lot of people like to say that Whitebeard snuck Akainu, and then after that Akainu still got back up after taking all those Whitebeard attacks. So it's a very controversial debate, but it started the Yonko versus Admiral debate and led us to now us discussing, did Kizaru get exposed recently in the last One Piece chapter? And then the fight that we've always wanted to see but Oda never shows us. It happened during the time skip. It was a battle of who can become the Fleet Admiral of the Marines. It was two admirals fighting, and this battle is intense, and it really showcased how powerful the admirals were. The battle lasted 10 days. Aokiji lost a leg. You see marks on Akainu since the battle was done. The scars these guys had after this battle was intense, but of course Akainu won. It was definitely extreme high diff. Punk Hazard definitely took a toll and really made us look at admirals like, okay, these guys are definitely different. And then a lot of people like to look at clashes of Yonkos, like we saw Whitebeard and Shanks clash early on pre-time skip, and really with the Conqueror's Haki clash, it was insane. Of course, we still haven't seen any admiral with Conqueror's Haki. And then of course we also saw Big Mom and Kaido had their clash, and they battled throughout the night, and of course before the Onigashima raid, which was intense, and there was also Conqueror's Haki clashes. So a lot of people like to say the Yonko are just different from these clashes we've seen in the story, them fighting each other. But the first time we've actually seen an Admiral and Yonko fight since the legendary Whitebeard and Akainu battle was of course Greenbull versus Shanks. But of course there's still asterisks. It wasn't really a full fight because Shanks never even entered the island. He just did some Wi-Fi conquers hockey that pretty much froze up Greenbull, and Greenbull's like, yeah, I don't want to fight the red hair pirates, and left. So he kind of punked Greenbull, and people will be like, okay, he punked Greenbull. Doesn't that mean that the admirals are weaker than the Yonko? Well, I'll give Greenbull two benefit of the doubts. I'll say this: Greenbull did come alone. He did pull up by himself, and Greenbull also, I will say this, he's a new admiral. He hasn't been an admiral like Kizaru, Aokiji, and kind of the original admirals. And then I also say this as well, Greenbull didn't actually lose to Shanks. Yes, he froze up and he didn't want to fight, but I've seen moments even in my personal life where someone is scared to fight and then they actually do fight and actually win. So we still don't know what would happen if Greenbull fought Shanks, but if I'm going to be honest with you guys, it was really looking bad for the admirals at this moment. And I think you can easily see that Shanks is stronger than Greenbull just from this moment, but it definitely still made the Yonko and Admirals debates actually stronger after this moment, because now it was like, okay, that's Greenbull though. We have Fujitoro, we have Kizaru, we have Aokiji, we have Akainu. And then of course there's Garp versus Aokiji. And this one is probably one of the most interesting ones because Garp is old, but he's not sick like Whitebeard. So just by that, Garp should be Yonko level. And he really showed out in the battle versus Aokiji. Let's be honest here. He did multiple attacks to Aokiji, and Aokiji got back up. Aokiji never lost to Garp, but a lot of people have to say that Garp took a lot of attacks, Aokiji took a lot of attacks, and a lot of people like to say this fight makes Aokiji at least Yonko level. Even we've seen prior to this, Aokiji was like low diffing commanders of the Blackbeard pirates, and Blackbeard didn't fight him when they actually joined. Like, a lot of people like to say that Aokiji is Yonko level. So this fight was definitely a very interesting one. I will say this though, Aokiji did get help by characters like Shiryu of the Rain, who of course stabbed Garp, and that definitely hindered Garp's ability in the fight. I'm not saying that, okay, if Garp didn't get stabbed, Aokiji would have lost. I'm just saying that helped Aokiji win. Garp kind of got jumped in that situation. And then we have the pinnacle of the Yonko, Kaido, the strongest creature alive. And he fought 4 different types of Luffy. And this is why people like to say Yonko's over Admirals, because Kaido fought Luffy with advanced armor haki in the beginning of the Onigashima raid. And then he goes on to fight Luffy unlocking advanced Conqueror's haki. And this with Luffy was incredibly powerful. Then he goes on to fight Luffy in Gear 4th while using Conqueror's haki. And he's using Snake Man and Bounce Man. And he's just going crazy. And this battle was insane. And then CP0 had to interrupt, and Kaido did not like that. Then, of course, finally is when Joy Boy comes back, Gear 5th, the Nika Nika Mythical Zone, Teleport ability. Even Kaido was impressed. Like, Luffy was coded in his Awakened, but he's also coded in Conqueror's Haki and Armament Haki. Kaido was super impressed. But then people will say, even Kaido fought the Red Scabbards before this. He fought Yamato, the Worst Generation. Like, the fact that Kaido fought these 4 types of Luffy, and still it took Luffy a crazy final attack that was the size of an island. The Admirals had a lot to prove. You could even see that Zoro using Ashura with that Conqueror's Haki coding that didn't even knock down Kaido. It gave him a scar, but it didn't knock him down. Really made us think the Yonko are easily above the Admirals. And then you can even use Big Mom when it comes to Eustace, Kid, and Law, both awakening their abilities. These are some of the strongest Worst Generation members, awaken their abilities, and of course, they didn't knock out Big Mom. They needed the explosion to finish the job. And probably one of the biggest reasons, I talked about it briefly in my chapter review, Kaido took a similar punch that Kizaru took in the last chapter. And of course, Kaido was damaged. He was knocked down, but he got back up and he continued to fight. And this is after Kaido took countless attacks prior, and Kizaru couldn't move for a while. Now, of course, Luffy, I will give Kizaru a benefit of the doubt. Luffy has gone stronger after fighting Kaido, and it's natural. After every arc, Luffy gets stronger, and the fight, of course, proved it against awakened Rob Lucci, because Luffy wasn't even using advanced Conqueror's Haki. He was just using basic Haki and using Gear 5th, his awakened Teleport ability, and he didn't take a hit from Rob Lucci, and he almost knocked him out unconscious. Rob Lucci was fading in unconsciousness, so really shows you how powerful Luffy has gone since the Kaido fight. And to defend Kizaru a little bit, he did fight Sentomaru before Luffy. Yeah, it was kind of a low diff, but it's still a battle. He fought before Luffy, and he did fight Snake Man Luffy Luffy and was pretty much handling Snake Man Luffy pretty relatively easy, and he knocked him across the entire island. Now, of course, Snake Man Luffy is definitely, it made him, Kizaru, say, okay, this guy definitely beat Kaido, so it gave Kizaru the respect to Luffy. Okay, this guy's actually powerful, but he was waiting for that Gear 5th, and when Gear 5th Luffy came out, some could say a lot of the fight was off screen because they were panting, and we've seen a lot of like panels of like Kizaru cloning himself, Luffy eating a light, Luffy throwing him across the ocean. Like, we saw a lot of moments, like, but honestly, the fight wasn't even close to when Luffy fought the Yonko Kaido. But if anything, the number one way to defend Kizaru from us saying he got exposed was he was focused on killing Vegapunk. At the end of the day, your fighting spirit matters. If I'm fighting someone and I'm focused on protecting someone, or I'm focused on actually like something else, I'm distracted, I'm not going to be in my best shape. And Kizaru was focused on killing Vegapunk. We've seen it countless times during the fight instead of killing Luffy. So I will give him that benefit of the doubt. And also, the final thing I'll say to defend, of course, Kizaru is he doesn't need to have Kaido's durability. That's what Kaido's known for. Like, when his first introduction, we've seen the countless things Kaido could have done. They couldn't kill him. They couldn't hang him. They couldn't guillotine him. He jumped off an entire Sky Island and lived. Kaido's durability is what makes him a Yonko. And he's top one in the first when it comes to durability. And Kizaru's a speedster. He's completely the opposite of Kaido. He's not a tank. He's a speedster. And he got hit. When a speedster gets hit, they usually take a lot of damage. We saw that when it comes to Cracker and his defense, Cracker's Biscuits. He got hit. He got destroyed. And let's be honest here. Kizaru is a speedster. He rarely gets hit. And Luffy accomplished that. And let's be honest here. Kaido's a tank. It took an island level punch to defeat him. Now, I must say, personally, I think only one Admiral is Yonko level. I think the only Admiral that's not Yonko level right now is, of course, the Admiral that defeated another Admiral in Akainu, the Fleet Admiral. He's the strongest Marine right now, in my personal opinion. And he's the reason why it started that whole discourse of Yonkos versus Admirals in Marineford War. So it makes sense that he's a Fleet Admiral and he's above Aokiji and Kizaru. That's one thing for sure. And I will say this, yes, I can go on destroying Kizaru for getting one tapped by Luffy. One named attack actually knocked him out. But I will say this, he's going up against Gear 5th Luffy with, like, and let's be honest, without limitations, Gear 5th Luffy, in my personal opinion, could be the strongest in the verse. So Kizaru didn't get really too exposed. He lost to a Yonko. And some fans might say Kizaru didn't lose. Some people might say Kizaru's talking after the battle. Yeah, he can't move, but he's talking after the battle, and Luffy's shriveled up old and has 32 seconds left before he actually comes back to normal. Some fans could use that copium. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to give Luffy the W because he hit the last attack on Kizaru. And if Luffy and Kizaru, like, the fight's not officially over. I will say that too. There could be more to this fight. Like, naturally, there could be more to the fight. It's just plot is really dictating this battle right now. But I will say this. The fans who had him over Kaido got exposed. And the fans who have Kizaru above, like, let's be honest here. I don't have Kizaru above Blackbeard, Shanks. I don't have him above Big Mom, and I don't have him above Kaido. So there's that.